What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at DataDash, and today is December 11th of 2017. Well, folks, it's time for another daily update here on the DataDash channel, and today we've got a few big topics to recap on. First and foremost, we're going to have to talk about what's on everyone's mind and is rushing through the headlines of every news and media outlet. It is no other than the aftermath of Bitcoin futures. So, yesterday we had a pretty historic day. We had the CBOE launch Bitcoin futures, really allowing big institutional players to have their first go at trading Bitcoin to a degree with the Bitcoin futures. And so far, if you haven't been able to keep up with it, it's been relatively positive. So we're going to be taking a deeper look into it, talking about the price action and a little bit of what we should be looking out for. And I'll be sharing, of course, my opinion on the whole recent event. Along with that as well, we're going to be taking a look back on Crypto Kittens and talking about a recent milestone that the collectible game has reached. And also I'm going to bring back up a little bit of my concerns still for the scalability issue on Ethereum. And of course, before all of this, we got to take a look at market valuations and also do some technical analysis on market leaders. So without further ado, folks, let's go ahead and dive into the daily update. So first and foremost, crypto markets have been holding relatively steady. And in fact, with Bitcoin going back up, we've been seeing market valuations coming back up to the top level. So of course, as always, seeing as it's making up 62% of the market, we have to keep an eye on Bitcoin. And as Bitcoin has kind of rallied back up towards its highs, we're starting to see a retest of the highs for Bitcoin around the $300 billion valuation range. Now, right now, it seems like we're a few billion dollars away. And as you can see, the recent highs were sitting around the $18,000 range. We're sitting on, as an average on CoinMarketCap, which takes the average of all exchange rates for Bitcoin. We're sitting around 16.5K. So this is still good. Bitcoin's holding strong. We still haven't entered bear market territory, but things are getting a little more volatile. A lot of people thought that this was the beginning of the sell-off, and it definitely was a nice little correction in Bitcoin. But we really haven't seen, I think, a full-scale correction if we're going to get that. And that's why I wasn't telling people to FUD or panic or anything like that. But definitely, we're starting to see some strength come back in. And it's going to be really the question of whether or not Bitcoin can hold above the highs over here at $300 billion. We'll have to wait and see on that one. So I'm not bearish. I've got my stop set just in case. But I think we're still holding relatively strong right now. Next up, let's take a look at overall market valuations. We can see here the same thing, what we're seeing generally with Bitcoin, but a little bit closer to the highs of the market. We're only a few billion down here, I think about around $10 billion. Yep, about $10 billion from the previous highs. So we're going to have to see if this almost acts as a flag here and starts to carry towards new highs in crypto markets, or if this starts to turn over. I think personally, we're going to have to really see a retest of these highs here before we see any serious rejection to the downside. But so far, no reason to be bearish. Make sure you just got your stop set if you want to try to trade it. And of course, altcoin markets doing relatively the same as Bitcoin, holding in there, still holding around the top level, but still a few billion dollars down from all-time highs. Alrighty, so markets are looking pretty good. We've had a rebound from the losses over the past few days, and a lot of this has come out of the recent event in Bitcoin. So after a few shaky days of price action in Bitcoin, which has been, of course, leading the market, we finally saw a green day. And this came out of the recent launch of the futures. So we're going to kind of go coinciding here and looking at the technical price action as well as the news. But here on Coinbase, we can see, much like every other exchange, there was a huge spike in volume at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when the Chicago Board of Exchange launched Bitcoin futures. And it was relatively positive. Now, of course, we were kind of holding in here after a little bit of a run-up with all the volume pouring in. We were waiting to see, if there was really any momentum inside the futures chart. Now, this is not Bitcoin futures here. This is, of course, Coinbase. This is actual exchanges of US dollars for Bitcoin. But as you all know, the futures contract works a little bit different. And this is an actual chart here. Now that it's finally loading, we have access now to see the price action of what people are trading on the futures. Now, before we dive into this, there's a lot of interesting things. For those of you who weren't able to participate in the live stream or see the video once it was uploaded, the CBOE website that actually has the chart for this, much like CNBC does, crashed within an instant at 6 p.m. along with CNBC's site. No one could access the actual chart for the Bitcoin futures. And it took us a while. We were all trying to recoup, and everyone was on Twitter panicking, like, does anyone have a source of what's happening with the futures? And some people could post some photos of the actual exchange rate. It was more the websites crashing because it was acting almost as an unintentional DDoS on the actual website. Everyone was just trying to swarm and see the information for themselves. And it was luckily nothing really crazy happened in the first few moments. As you can see down here, the price action was pretty minimal. And the volume was quite low at first. Everyone was kind of shocked. Everyone thought there was going to be a pool of investors trying to trade the futures. But it was pretty nice. And what we were talking about basically in regards to the live stream was watching to see if the futures would take direction. The traditional exchanges were watching to see what futures markets, what institutional investors thought. And I said to watch for one thing, to see if once we found the bottom and a run back up, if we could get back above the previous highs and almost have what's kind of like an ICO or IPO reversal pattern. If you don't know what that is in our technical analysis, it's usually when something new opens up in the market, has a correction, and comes back up to meet the previous highs, and then you usually get a rally afterwards. Or if we were going to have a double bottom and break through and continue downward. This would lead towards the direction of what the CBOE thinks of Bitcoin in regards to the futures, and we actually had it come up to the positive side. And of course, as always, it's a very simple technical pattern, but once it comes through, you usually have a very nice confirmed rally. Now, there's a few interesting things that we should keep in mind in regards to this that a lot of people haven't been talking about. On the Chicago Board of Exchange, there was a lot of rules set in regards to futures. This isn't exactly just like trading Bitcoin. You're trading cash-settled futures. And in futures markets, there's usually rules and boundaries set. First being that at 7% gains or losses on Bitcoin, a circuit breaker is triggered. Now, what does this mean? This means that trading is halted, and this is usually to stop panic buying or panic selling from coming into the futures market. And Bitcoin has to play with a lot of the rules that other commodities and other futures, different classes of futures have to trade under. So they had the circuit breaker trade, trigger in about, I think it was like 2 or 3 times during the day, as it was going up towards 20%. And there's actually a few limitations. You can't actually have Bitcoin trade 20% out of the spot price to the upside or downside. And the spot price is the average from the opening to the closing. So we were really pushing amongst the boundaries here for Bitcoin. And there was a lot of hype coming into the futures. So we can see things are trading relatively positive. You can see that within less than 24 hours, we already have 3,107 in volume. Now, these are not, of course, Bitcoins being traded. These are Bitcoin futures. So this is a lot of capital coming in from just the CBOE, especially on something so new and something so exciting and volatile. So it's very interesting to see this come into fruition. Now, in a moral sense and stuff, this is good for Bitcoin in the sense of adoption, because what this is going to lead to, if we can have, some more stable trading on Bitcoin in regards to the futures, if it can hold in there and things aren't always continuously triggering the circuit breaker, what this will mean is a maturing sense for Bitcoin. It's going to bring in more institutional interest, and this will eventually lead towards ETFs, which are going to allow mainstream users to invest in Bitcoin a lot easier than having to go open a Coinbase or GDAX account to trade Bitcoin. And I think it's going to be a good step in at least getting people to talk about cryptocurrencies and maybe bringing in more financial instruments for these other cryptocurrencies. Again, I know people have mixed opinions on it. I don't exactly like institutions getting their hands on Bitcoin, but to be fair, they've had the opportunity on their, in the personal sense for a while. And then also, it's kind of inevitable if you want cryptocurrencies not only to continue going up in valuation, but also to see more mainstream adoption. It usually starts at the institutional level and then goes to retail investors. So, again, bravo to those who thought the futures would come through on a positive end. I honestly didn't doubt it for a second, but at the same time, it was a 50-50 gambit and stuff. So that's why I told people not to really try to trade this and just kind of sit back and watch it. And it's good to see that, institutional investors are seeing optimism in Bitcoin so far, at least in regards to its futures. All right, so next up on the technical analysis here, we can, actually, I haven't really dove into Bitcoin in a technical sense. I guess we talked about the futures. I'm waiting to see if we do kind of take a revisit of the highs. Now, this is, of course, GDAX, where this candle is a little more extended than most of the other ones that were, most of the other exchanges on December 7th. But I think what we want to see is a general retest above 17,000. If we can hold back up above there, we might get another big rally, much like we saw over here. The volatility is expanding, guys. Look at this. You're seeing the wicks of each candle getting much, much wider. The price range on each daily candle is getting much larger. So you're going to see this more and more as we go towards highs. Whether this means we're getting a correction or if we're, going to continue to all-time highs doesn't really matter. You're going to see more and more of this price volatility. And especially as we see more volume come in as well. I'm really shocked to see the amount of volume we're getting, especially at these new highs in price. So keep it in mind. That's just what you're going to see. I'm not really taking a bearish side or a bullish side anytime soon. We're going to have to wait and see what the market decides, and I have my stops set in place. Okay, so next up on the list, Ethereum, BTC. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Now, a lot of people have been asking me about my opinion on Ethereum. We did see a nice little rebound after Bitcoin was seeing a correction. Altcoins got a little bit of love. However, Ethereum looks like it's curving back over. And much like how I was back up here, I'm still not exactly optimistic on Ethereum yet. I think there's a lot of things kind of kicking in here. First and foremost, we broke a very big even at 4 million Satoshis. Along with that as well, it's been hard to keep up with Bitcoin. If we see another Bitcoin rally, that's not going to be good for Ethereum. And I think, as we'll talk about later with Crypto Kittens, there's something I really have as a concern for Ethereum in the sense of being an enterprise solution and being able to build, both decentralized applications and implementing smart contracts on the Ethereum network in the sense of scalability and really being built for enterprise solutions. I think there's a lot of questions that are starting to come up with Ethereum, but on a trader's perspective, I'm waiting for 25 million Satoshis. That's really the next big even that could find support, not to mention it already found support there. So what I'm hoping for is either a pullback down here and a bounce off, or a curve down on the price and then a smooth transaction back to the upside. Hopefully, if we have a Bitcoin correction, that might be the trigger for this to move up higher. But we'll have to see on Ethereum. Still not exactly bullish on it, but it is definitely cheap in comparative to Bitcoin. USD value holding pretty good. All right, so next up, let's take a look at Bcash, or Bitcoin Cash, as someone like me to call it. Still not looking exactly optimistic. Same kind of pattern as Ethereum, a drastic sell-off with most altcoins, and then a little bit of a rebound as Bitcoin corrected. I think you could probably see a support at the bottom. You need a double bottom on this, but nothing optimistic right now. And I can't do any crazy technical analysis on this. There's just really not much going on here in regards to Bitcoin Cash. No volume coming in like we saw over here. So it's just kind of sitting out in the water. No serious attention to it, and I'm not making any trades on Bitcoin Cash right now. All right, next up, IOTA BTC. Let's go ahead and take a look here. So right now, what I think IOTA is doing is, if we take a look here on the hourly, it looks like it's wedging out a little bit. What we want to see here is if it's going to hold on the bottom of this wedge here, or at least what appears to be a wedge forming. And if it can hold here, which I think it looks pretty decent, we're still a little bit lower than the big even. I'm looking for it to hold around 250,000 Satoshis. If we can get a rebound here and break through the top, we might see a continued rally for IOTA. And it could be a good hedge possibly against Bitcoin if it does start to see a correction. I think, though, that IOTA is good. I'm definitely going to keep my eye on it personally to possibly add and build a big position in IOTA. But it looks pretty good right now. So we'll have to see. Again, watch for that level at the bottom support line. That's the main advice I could give in a sense of technical action. And then also we want to see some of this volume come back in. Where did it go? Where did the volume go in IOTA? Yeah, but definitely look into that and see if it can hold it. And I know what you all are excited about. I know many people had complained that I wasn't covering it a lot on the channel, but no matter if I decided to not cover anything outside of the top 5, it has made it back into the rankings. Yes, folks, Litecoin is back in action and has been killing it, going almost to $200 per Litecoin. We could take a look at the USD valuation as we will here in a minute. But as always, as traders, we look at the Bitcoin comparative, and it has been doing quite well. It's been one of the best hedging devices against Bitcoin, as Bitcoin has been really not only seeing a correction, but also still staying strong. And during that time period where Bitcoin saw a rebound, Litecoin's still been doing quite well. So amazing stuff on Litecoin's end. I don't really know exactly why this has happened. What was really interesting, if we go over here to CoinMarketCap, I can actually go back to Litecoin here. One thing that I noticed, not only are we approaching $10 billion in valuation, but what's interesting, if you look at the markets, you'd probably expect, okay, Litecoin's getting a big boost over a day or two. It's probably South Korean volume. It's actually coming from GDAX, Bitfinex, and mostly U.S. exchanges. BitHum down here is the third in volume. So this isn't just a Korean pump. This is actually, mostly U.S. volume. So very interesting stuff on that end. It shows me that I think there's a few things that might have propped this up. Litecoin itself is probably taking some positive price action because of the successful launch of Bitcoin futures, the anticipation for Bitcoin futures, and the fact that if Bitcoin is actually going through and successfully launching futures and getting more financial instruments made around it, Litecoin might be up next because it has, for a long period of cryptocurrency history, held second place in valuation, not to mention if Bitcoin is to gold for cryptocurrencies or digital gold, I would definitely say Litecoin is to digital silver. It's kind of one of the other very limited supply cryptocurrencies that operates in a lot of the same functions. Not to mention, to be fair, there's a lot of innovation in regards to Litecoin. It's still very easily transactable, I hope that's a word, transferable between different individuals and transactions. Not to mention, they've got a lot of innovations coming with the Lightning Network, and I'm excited to see what they can do with that. But, there's lots of things going for Litecoin. They've got an active community, and I think it is one of the leading crypto communities out there. So, good to see Litecoin coming back above. On a technical sense, not too much you can do here in crazy wacko price action unless I went down to the 1 hour or something. I think what you have to look for is to hold this and possibly come back down to 1 million Satoshis and make it support again. If Litecoin can do that, boy, oh boy, we might see Litecoin come up more and more on its chart, and we might see it go way past $200. But it's holding that 1 million Satoshi level. Remember, the Satoshi chart matters. Price levels matter, and we have to see that. But then again, guys, awesome rally on Litecoin's part. Huge valuation increase over the past few days since the end of November. And last but not least, we got to talk about the cutest Crypto Kittens. Crypto Kittens selling over 12 million. Could be Ethereum's killer app after all. So a lot of people are curious as to whether or not Crypto Kittens is a phase or a fad, or if this is literally going to have some long-term ramifications. I think it's a fad, much like all collectible things. We've looked through history. Beanie Babies. I know, for example, different kind of card games and stuff are huge. Different collectibles. Some last for a long time. I think honestly, this is just going to be generally a fad. It's kind of in a sense, I think, playing and prying off of the human emotion of wanting to collect things. We love doing that, and we love sharing it, and also hopefully holding things and selling them at a higher value. I've had personal friends reach out to me about this. However, there's a few things I take away from this. First and foremost, whoever came up with it is absolutely genius. It's simple, it seems dumb, but it has been attracting so many people into the blockchain space, into cryptocurrencies. And I think we all understand that once you start seeing cats come into things, much like with the internet, mainstream adoption is starting to come in to a degree or to a sense. And again, like I said, as simple as and as stupid as it seems, it is cute, it is adorable, and people are falling in love with it. But the one thing that I get out of this, not only do I see this as a good sign because it's getting people in a easy to understand way of introduction to blockchain and cryptocurrencies, it is leading me towards the continued worries that I have. And one of the reasons I think Ethereum has been kind of ticking down outside of the fact that it hasn't been able to keep up with Bitcoin. And that is the factor that this is going to ask whether or not Ethereum can really scale. Ethereum is going to have to work as well as, the developers in the community. I think generally people in the blockchain space need to stop the bickering, and we really need to start working on some scaling solutions because, as we all know, Crypto Kittens has been continuing to clog up the Ethereum network. Transactions are getting backed up. You can go look at the statistics. And because of this, we have to ask whether or not Ethereum is built to scale for enterprise solutions. So that's the big thing that I've taken away from this. You've been seeing the value of these things run up like crazy, and if they continue to do so, people are going to continue to trade them. It's going to be crypto kitty mania, and everyone's going to be paying a higher price for them until I think it probably will slow down and people will stop paying such a high price for these virtual kittens. But for right now and stuff, outside of the fascination of how much people are paying for them, I think we need to ask the scaling solution. Ask what that's going to be. Are there any things that we can do to improve Ethereum's transactions? Because if this is clogging up the network, that's a concern for long-term adoption. So, again, nonetheless, positive news, I guess, in a sense. Congrats again to the people who have created this. Fantastic stuff. And hopefully we'll see more of these projects come along on the Ethereum network as well as other crypto networks, and really building decentralized applications, building things on top of the blockchain that get people more intrigued to learn about cryptocurrencies. I think it'll be for the better in the long term, but it'll definitely also spark us to have a debate about scalability. All right, anyways, everyone, that's it for the video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, or anything to say on the topics that we talked about, please leave a comment down below in the description. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll try to get back to any comments or questions in regards to myself if I get the chance to. But until then, everyone, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Stay tuned.